To tonight's asset protection webinar. It's sponsored by Protect Wealth Academy, but we are so delighted to have Toby Mathis here. Toby has been a friend. I've started teaching with him, I think, well, it's been almost 20 years ago now. And what a gentleman, what a tremendous scholar. We're pleased to have him and to talk about how you can benefit, how your business can benefit from the recent CARES Act. So we appreciate you being on. Before we get started, just a couple quick announcements that we probably ought to go over. As most of you know, this is part of a webinar series that's been going on for 8-9 years now. Since we're not doing a lot of face-to-face seminars, we've been doing a webinar almost every week. We invite you next week. Travis Howard is a real estate flipper and an instructor, and he does the Charlotte. He's in the Charlotte area, but he does real estate trainings all over the nation. And I can't think of a better person with a finger on the pulse of the real estate market than Travis is. He's in the trenches. He knows the markets. He knows how to find good deals, and we're delighted to have him. And then I'll be teaching on the 28th just simple basic asset protection questions that frankly a lot of attorneys don't understand. And so we'll be talking about some very simple things, but they're core principles if you're going to understand your own asset protection. So we're going to be covering that, and then we've got a whole lineup planned for May as well. The upcoming events, most of you know that we postponed the Phoenix event that would be happening in a week and a half. It was scheduled for April 27th through the 29th. We've moved that now to Phoenix. So the next event we have tentatively planned is the June Anaheim event, June 1st, 2nd, 3rd. What we will do is we'll keep you informed. Not sure what's happening with that. We're pretty sure we're going to be in Phoenix and in Orlando. Anaheim, what we're going to do is we're going to watch the Disneyland Resort, which is 2 blocks away. If they open and California gives them a green light to do that, then we'll probably hold a seminar, even if it's a little bit wider space than normal. But we'll keep you informed of that and let you know as we get closer to the event. The 3-day summit is where we're bringing in some of the best instructors from all over the nation, give you a chance to sit down with them and go over your estate, them and we're bringing in some great strategists. If you're interested in the agenda, you'll find that at protectwealth.com. And we still are still moving forward with the cruise. It's in December. Toby went with us on a cruise one time, and oh my gosh, everybody in the cruise had a whole bunch of fun except for Toby. Toby was doing consults and the whole time. Loved having him. What a workhorse. I learned to have a tremendous respect for Toby on this cruise. When we teach, we've had some of the best instructors in the nation over the time and this is a chance, unlike any other time, to sit down with brilliant strategists, go to dinner with them, see them on the beach. Maybe you see way too much of it, the instructors, but we have a lot of fun. We're not really promoting that, but we also haven't canceled it. So if you're interested in that, you can get information at protectwealth.com. All right. Before we do any tax or legal, there's always a disclaimer. We're going to teach good, solid principles. How they apply to you and your situation is really a chance. That's really an opportunity for you and your attorney, your accountant, your CPA, somebody to sit down and talk. That's one of the reasons at the 3-day summit, we give you the opportunity to sit down with strategists and say, well, that really doesn't apply to you, but this does. And this we could add to your mix to reduce your taxes or give you better asset protection. So, but not everything applies to every situation, and I'm sure Toby will be very, very clear with you on that. So with that, let's introduce Toby, like I say, Toby has been a friend of ours for so many years. He's seen the ups and downs of our businesses. Our businesses are, although very, very independent, we work really close with the Anderson Law Group. We follow their lead on a lot of things. In fact, most things. They are the cutting edge law firm of the nation when it comes to especially real estate investors, small business. Toby is one of the best legal strategists I've ever met, as well as one of the best tax attorneys. And he's an author, but he's just a really nice guy. I love getting to know him and spending a little time with him. What we'd like to do is would like to turn the time over to him. There's so much bad information about this CARES Act. There's so many, if you're just listening to the news media, you're going to get all screwed up on this. And so cut to the chase, get to the point, what works, what doesn't work. We couldn't think of anyone better to bring on than Toby Mathis. And so we invite you to ask questions, use your chat screen. If you're okay, I'm going to get rid of all of the um, yes, we can hear you, and we're just gonna open this up to Q&A. Toby will watch this, but we'll play off each other. We want you to ask questions as we go through this, but let him cover a principle and then ask the questions. But don't hit him halfway through. But we invite you. We want you when this call ends to be very clear on what you and your business can do. So with that, let's turn time over to Toby. Toby, again, thank you for your time. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you being here, buddy.
You know, you're a super nice guy. I was looking at all those faces of just like I know Joe and I know Aaron Adams and Gene Carino and Clint and Michael, of course, and Jill and your face, which we've known each other for a long time. Joey, up there's a bunch of people. I'm just kind of cracking up. I'm like, wow, and Pat James, he's been, yeah, Pat James been in my client for like since 1998. It might be give or take a few over that 20. It's pretty funny. Anyway, for those guys who don't know me, I know, get on with it. That's what I say. I read your guys' message. I get it. All right, we're just going to jump right in because we want to talk about saving some money. Anderson, what we're here for, we've been here since 1999. Clint and myself started it. If you guys know Clint, really good guy. There's Clint and there's Michael, my two partners. Some of you guys didn't realize, but Clint actually is pretty famous on Netflix. I don't know if anybody's seen the what is it, the Tiger King? Have you guys figured that one out yet? Come on, Kendall. Give me some love, brother.
Oh, I am over here dying. That is the best. I am totally using that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
You didn't realize that Clint had a side gig there. He loves his cats.
That's awesome.
Anyway, yeah, so we have this CARES Act. It kicked out, and there's bits and pieces of it for everybody. There's bits and pieces of it for everybody from the sole proprietor who is now eligible for unemployment. They're eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. They're eligible for the economic injury disaster loans. You have a whole bunch of stuff for them. You have stuff for the S Corp. They're eligible under the PPP. I'm just going to call it the Paycheck Protection Program. And somebody says I get nothing. Right, there's the PPP. There's I'm just going to call it the 3P, or you'll hear me say it, the PPP, because I don't want to keep saying the Paycheck Protection Program. You have stuff in there for loans and guarantees to large corporations, stuff in there for individuals. A lot of you guys have been hearing about this stimulus payment where they're just giving money. But what I really care about is the small business owner and investor and what's in there for us. And so I'm really going to go over those things. Some of you guys are already, no, you can't tell Clint. I have to save these things for when I see him next time. For those of you guys who don't know, Clint's been my partner for over 20-something years. We're like brothers, so I have to give him a little bit of tough part. Programs surrounding student loans, we'll go over all that fun stuff. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do highlights of the CARES Act. We're going to access the benefits for individuals. A lot of you guys don't realize that there's some massive things in there for just you and me, accessing IRAs, being able to carry back losses, even if they've been incurred already. we're able to go back and unlock some money that you may have paid in the past. There's things for retirement plans. There's all sorts of stuff. And then there's the stuff that's involving the Small Business Administration, or the SBA. And you've been reading about those because they're, in theory, they're gonna run out, and Congress is fighting over putting more money in it and all this fun stuff. But it's pretty mind-boggling how much money they've actually thrown at us and at the small business community, and how small a percentage it's actually going to affect. I'll just throw that out there too. And then things you need to do right now are risk missing out. There are some things in here that are absolutely positively time sensitive, guys. So, and they interrelate. It's not as easy as everybody's playing it out, that you just apply and you get money. That's not how it works. You need to know what you're doing, or you're going to be put right aside. And they've already said it. If your stuff is filled out incorrectly, they don't tell you. They just put it aside. So the first thing we're looking at is increased unemployment benefits. This is huge for our economy. If you have employees, this is for those of you guys who are business owners out there. If you have employees and they're making less than $30 an hour, you got to think long and hard about bringing them back as employee, like bringing them back if you don't have something for them to do. So if I am a restaurant owner, if I am doing something that is being shut down and we don't know when we're going to reopen, it might be May, it might be June, I would not be risking having somebody come back under the idea that I'm going to get them under like the Paycheck Protection Program and pay them there versus the unemployment, because they should be able to recover about 100% of their wages, because the federal government is now kicking in $600 a week on top of the state unemployment benefits, and it is available to anyone, not just employees, but also sole proprietors and things like that, and those folks. There's also the stimulus, the recovery rebates, which really is a rebate for 2020 taxes, but it just means that there's money that's going to go out there. It's a one-time hit, what, $1,200, $500 for a child, $2,400 for a couple. But I don't pay too much attention to that, because that's for most of my clients. They don't qualify. There's a phase out at $150,000 if you're married. So most of my folks that I work with are making more than that. If they're below that, then it's just like gravy. But it's a one-time payment that's only going to do a little bit for you. Employer payments of student loans. Yeah, the employer can now offer as a benefit to their employees the direct payment of student loans, and they can write it off up to, I think it's $5,250. The problem there is most of my clients are small mom and pop, or they're people who are they're top heavy. In other words, most of the benefit has to go to third parties, or you don't get to do it. So it's not as great for the small business owner as you think. It's really there for the big corporations to allow another benefit to help people go through this to do the crises. And what they're really doing is they're saying, hey, we know we loaded up our millennials with a ton of student debt, and hey, you can go ahead and pay some of that for them to help them get through it. And there's another section called 139 that's not sitting up here, that wasn't part of the CARES Act, but that was unlocked by the national disaster being declared by our president. And what that does is allows an employer to pay all coronavirus related expenses, including medical, including having to hire people in your house, including having to buy a computer, whatnot. The employer can pay that and deduct it. It's section 139 of the Internal Revenue Code. And it only gets unlocked when you have a national disaster. Then there's also the employer payroll tax credit. This is critical. You can get up to $5,000 per employee for the year under this tax credit. And it is a tax credit, meaning if you have more credit than you have tax to apply it against, and it gets applied against old age, death, and survivors or Social Security tax, then they give you a credit. They actually give you the money back. But it's up to $5,000. The total amount of compensation that goes into it isn't just payroll, but it's if you're paying health benefits, retirement, et cetera, is $10,000, and you get half of that. So if you pay an employee over a period of time, so we're just going to say by quarter. So we know this quarter is definitely affected. and then next. So if you pay them up to $10,000, you're going to get a $5,000 tax credit. That's like the government giving you $5,000. Now here's the problem. This next one, the Paycheck Protection Program, what they keep hearing about in the news, you lose the tax credit when you take a Paycheck Protection Program loan, even if it's not forgiven. So if you could take a loan, and I'll go over what all these things are, but you lose the tax credit, so it could cost you money. So you need to not just go out and knee-jerk reaction, apply for things. You need to look and say, wait a second, am I better off letting the unemployment pay for employees, and maybe I take the tax credit? There's also employer side and sole proprietorship payroll tax deferral, meaning that if we have federal employment taxes, we can defer them into 2021 and 2022. That's the self-employment tax or the old age, death, and survivors again. There's also the EDLs, the emergency disaster loans and grants. They created this something called emergency grants underneath the CARES Act. And we'll go over what that is and what it really is. Everybody talks about this $10,000. It's $1,000 per employee up to $10,000 as an emergency grant that I've met exactly one person now. Somebody on my last webinar a couple hours ago said that they'd just received it. And then I tried to follow up with some questions and they didn't answer. So I'm not sure if that's really happened, because I've yet to meet another human, like a human being eyeball to eyeball, who's received this yet. There's subsidies for current SBA debtors. Like if you have a loan and you're with the SBA, they're giving you a holiday for 6 months. You don't have to pay any part of it. And then we have special rules for retirement plans, accessing your retirement monies. A lot of people don't realize that you can get basically up to $200,000 per participant out of your retirement plans without any penalties or interest. You can get that for at least a year. For a portion of it, half of it, it's a payback over 3 years, and the other half is a payback over 6 years. Years 2 through 6, you're going to have some interest, but it's going to be a very, very low rate, like less than 2%. There's also some changes to charitable contributions. They created what's called an above the line deduction for up to $300 that you can give to a charity, and you no longer have to put it on your Schedule A, meaning that you could still, if you're somebody who takes the standard deduction and you never get any benefit for your charitable giving, you're going to get up to $300 this year, because they want people to give to the charities that are battling the virus and helping out the organizations that you can. By the way, most hospitals are charities. The other thing about charitable deduction, and this is going to freak some of you guys out because you have your own charities, is you can give up to 100% of your adjusted gross income and write it off for 2020. Now, the reason that's important is because I could literally pay zero tax in 2020 if I want to. Like, so if you're getting hit by this virus and a shutdown, we're looking for money everywhere. It's not just about getting some grant or getting some loan money. If I can save by not having to pay taxes, I'm going to do it. And by the way, that charitable contribution amount, 30% of it can come from assets that are appreciated assets. Like you could give stock, or you could give a house, or you could give something else to your own charity, write off up to 30% of your adjusted gross income, and then make a cash contribution for the remaining 70 if you wanted to. Now, not that everybody wants to, but there are going to be people out there that are looking at this going, hey, if I could just get myself down to a reasonable tax amount and I could save myself $100,000 or so on taxes, boy, that would be great, and it would go a long ways towards covering up some of the losses. And then that last one is net operating loss rules. You can now carry back losses up to 5 years. And so if you create a net operating loss this year in 2020, you could carry it back to 2019, 2018, 2017, 16, all the way to 15. And if you have losses, because net operating losses went away under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was passed in 2018 and came in effect in 2019. So if we went and we changed our tax return for last year, then we can roll it back. Hey, somebody says that they got their grant. How much did you get, Jason? Did you get based on your employees? 2 businesses? How much? Can you just give me a quick hit on that? I see people responding, and now he's got my curiosity. Yes, 1 employee each, so you got $2,000 total. Yeah, that sounds about right. So everybody thought it was a $10,000. Yep. So everybody thought it was a $10,000 grant. And I was like, it says up to, and they haven't told us how they're going to calculate it. They didn't tell us until yesterday. So here's the thing I'm going to tell you. First off, this CARES Act is pretty massive for you, but it's not what you think. You're going to be looking in the corners for stuff. The stuff that everybody's chasing, that's kind of like, oh man, that's like everybody trying to go through the front door. So we want to go through a side door or go to the back, right? Where there's not as much traffic and take advantage of some things that might be there. One of the things that came out was this federal easing. Somebody says, how do you receive it? You had to have it auto deposited into your account. You have to give them your account number. So I imagine it was auto deposit, right, Jason? If you're willing to share. See, now I'm just going to start talking to you guys out there. Jason's going to say like, oh man, I didn't know I had to teach the event. Toby's going to drive me in here. Yep, auto deposit. So there you go. All right, so the Federal Reserve really did something amazing. They said they're going to kick in $600 billion more to buy more banknotes that are made to small businesses. So this is called quantitative easing, and we still don't have enough. This is pretty crazy. Somebody says, oh yeah, I'll get into all the questions here in a little bit. You guys are asking some good questions already, and I'm always looking over there. So it'll be interesting. All right, quantitative easing. This is where the Fed is building up his balance sheet by buying. They print money to buy things. And so usually they're buying treasuries or something, but no, now they're going to buy loans, and they're going to buy back $600 billion. Take a look at this. This is quantitative easings that's taken place. You saw it happen right after the recession, and they did it again. So they bought 1.25 trillion in here. I'm going to give you guys some highlights so you can follow along, because otherwise this will get confusing quickly. So they did longer term securities of 1.25, so it was mortgage backed. They tried to bail us out. Our business notes is promissory notes owed for start. Okay, we'll take a look at that here in a second, Joyce. Q2, they did another. I shouldn't say Q because it's quantitative easing too. It was actually in the period of about 2011 to 2012, and they did a bunch of treasury securities, which again they're buying these cheapy things, just trying to drive the interest rate up a little bit. And now you're seeing them do it again. And what are they going to do? $1.5 trillion short-term lending, which means they're buying up the notes that the banks are entering into. They're going to buy up to 95% of those face value of those notes. So the banks are going to go out there and dump money to its people. Why is that important for you guys? Because this isn't over. The first wave was this stimulus where they start trying to push money to the small business owner. It's not done at all. And even if they stopped everything today, there's still going to be other opportunities. So if you're looking at income, you got to be watching what they're doing. Yep, everybody's saying about the economists. By the way, the economists said that the most effective of all of these, I'll go back to this real quick, the most effective of all of these benefits, as far as from what they can tell, is this one right up here, these unemployment benefits. That's the most effective as far as allowing the economy to recover. But then we threw all this other stuff in it as well. What they could have just said is, hey, employers, we're just going to pay for all your employees for you. The feds came in and kicked a lot of money. What if they just said, hey, we're going to throw more money at that instead of doing this weird paycheck protection program? If they just said, hey, you know what, we need to make sure that these employees that we told that we're going to furlough, here's some money for them, and then here's some money for the small business owners to cover lease payments and things like that. Like, you could come up with your operating expense off of your P&L pretty easy, and they could have just done something on that, but they didn't, because they're Congress people and they like to make things complicated. So the employer the ones that we care about right now, and there's my little pun, CARES Act. So there's my care. Get it? All right, employer payroll tax credit, the Paycheck Protection Program, the EDLs, the emergency disaster loans and grants, and the special rules for retirement plans. So we're going to hit on those today. So you ready? Get ready, go. All right. So here's what it looks like. I created my coronavirus money matrix with all of these things on here. Who can apply? Is there a time limit to apply? Yes. Who do you apply with? Matt, because they're different. Because, for example, under the economic injury disaster loans, that's going straight to the SBA, whereas the Paycheck Protection Program decided, hey, we're gonna go through lenders, we're gonna go through banks. Yeah, nothing wrong could happen there. We're gonna give some public aid to a for-profit institution, and we're gonna expect them to distribute it fairly. Are you kidding me? Like, they bug me sometimes. And then we're gonna go over we go over the tax credit and make sure that if we do this one, that it's not that we're giving up more than we would have received over here. And last but not least, we're looking at the Sba Express. Realistically, if you're doing Sba Express, you're going after traditional financing. So I'm probably going to say ixnay on that and go into alternative financing. I'm going to look and see what comes out of these new programs, and expect all of your fintech companies, expect PayPal, expect Intuit, expect all of these Square, expect them all to get into this market, because we want to make sure that the money gets out there. So expect them to get in there and start doing these loans. Somebody says, if I haven't done the PPP application, does that mean I'm not going to get it? Nope. It means that here's the rub. I had a client yesterday, good relationship with his bank, and I literally clicked send on the supporting documents. I pulled up all the supporting docs and sent it over, and he was approved. I clicked at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and he received his approval by 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Like, I sent it directly to the banker, and he got it back. It was a local bank in Texas. This is the problem you have. If they're deciding who's going to get the loan, this is what my bankers said to me. We're going to take care of our good clients first. It's like, what? You got it. Right now, if I showed you the numbers, and I'll actually show you some of the numbers here in a little bit, but the American Bankers Association had them. The average PPP loan right now is about 250,000. It's not, they're not giving them to the small guys. They're going after and taking care of the big ones. And so it's not that it's not going to happen. It's that right now the monies are going to run out, and they're making sure that the big clients for the bank are taken care of. So if you're a banker, just think about this. You have to give a loan at 1% that's paid back over 2 years with no personal guarantee, no collateral. Who are you going to give it to? You're going to give it to the guy that just came in, or are you going to give it to the guy you've been working with for 10 years? I vote on the 10 years. So we kind of follow this matrix. So what I do is I look at it and say, hey, we don't need to deal with banks if we already have the money. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to go right to the penalty-free distributions and the QRP loans. That's exactly where I'm going to start. And I'm just going to walk down through it. Hey, who can apply for a penalty-free distribution? Anybody with an IRA or a 401k or a 403b or 457 or any type of plan. Is there a time limit? Yeah, you're going to have to ask for that money before, let's see, I think it's before the end of the year. I could actually look at my own little matrix here. So you're going to have to do it before the end of the year. Who do you apply with? Well, you just go to your custodian if it's an IRA, or if you are your own administrators, like you have a 401k and you're your own trustee, you just ask yourself, can I have some money? And I will go over, you guys are asking a lot of good questions, so we're going to go over that. The term is end of the 3rd calendar year. We need to make sure that we pay it back before December 31st, 2022. And interest rate is 0. It's treated as a trustee-to-trustee sale, or trustee-to-trustee transfer. So that's really important to understand that this is not even a rollover. So if you've done a rollover this year, this does not, that you're not out of luck. And somebody says, do you need a good credit score? No, you don't even have to apply for this one. This is a penalty-free distribution from your own IRA or 401k. you just go to your custodian, and there is some magic language, which is that I've been affected by the coronavirus. It's actually set out in the CARES Act, and it says, hey, I've been affected by the coronavirus. I either have it, I'm caring for somebody who has it, or I have been affected by the coronavirus, meaning that we all have been affected because we've all been pretty much shut down, which case they get a early distribution. There's no 10% penalty. There's no tax. There's no 20% withholding. As long as you pay it back, there is no tax. There is some confusion because they said that the tax on the distribution is paid, and I'm going to use the exact word. They said ratably over 3 years. And what ratably means is over a period. It doesn't mean pro rata equally. It just means, hey, I have 3 years to pay the tax. But if you're going to pay it back, I don't see why they would tax you. So I said, if I'm taking it out with the intent to pay it back before the end of the 3rd year, there's no reason for me to pay tax on it, because if I did, and I put it in before the end of the 3rd year, then I'd have to go back and amend those tax returns, which seems silly. I can't imagine that that's what the government intended. What they intend is, hey, if you're not going to pay it back, then you can stretch it out over 3 years. All right, and so the only rules here is that you got to have at least $100,000 in the plan. It's an early distribution. All right, so we say that's step number 1. Step number 2 is, well, okay, I need more money than that. I'm really, my business is suffering. I need some capital infusion. Okay, so let's look at the QRP loan. Who can apply? Anybody with a qualified retirement plan. This is not for somebody with an IRA. You cannot take a loan out of an IRA. So you need to have a 401k. You need to have a 403b, 457. You cannot have any of the IRAs. Let's just put it that way. DB plan works too. Who do you apply with, and is there a time limit? On this one, you have to do the QRP loan by the end of June, I believe. So, or here we go. Is there a time limit? It was 180 days from the enactment. So September 27th. So we're looking at September 27th. You apply with your plan administrator. So if you are employed by somebody who has a 401k, you go to the plan administrator and say, hey, I need to do that. And Katrina, I believe the thrift savings plan is the same thing. So you should be able to do it. I believe that one's falling under 457. I'd have to check, but I could absolutely take a look for you if that comes down to it. Now here's the deal. It's what they did is they literally amended the language of a typical loan out of a qualified plan. So if you could have gotten a basic loan out of your plan for the 50,000 up to 50%, they just took the 50,000 and they made it 100, and they took the 50% and they made it 100. Now here's the magic. You have a 1-year deferral right here. You don't have to pay anything on that for a year. You get to borrow that money and you don't pay anything. And then you pay it back over 6 years. You pay it back over 5 years. So you have a deferment for a year, not having to make any payments, and then you pay it back over 6 years. The interest rate is federal AFR long-term rates, which are pretty drastically low right now. Last time I looked, I think it was right around 1%. And there's no conditions. You could just use that money however you want. And again, the only, like on this one, there's not even a condition. You don't even have to say, hey, I've been hurt. You just say, give me the money. And if you have an IRA, for example, with $200,000 in it, you could take 100 over here. Hopefully you guys can see my little red ball. And then we roll into our own 401k. We have to set up a 401k with our business, and then we could loan another 100,000 out. So if you have $200,000 in an IRA, we can get it all out. Zero tax, almost no interest. On half of it, you won't even pay interest. On the other half, you'll pay a tiny amount of interest. And then you're not relying on anybody else. It doesn't mean that you don't apply for these other loans, and we'll go over what those other loans are. It just means that you take the pressure off. Let's get a breather. Let's not be stressing. Let's know that we've got it taken care of. Let's know that our families are all right. Let's know that our stuff. Somebody says, am I correct that you can have only one loan at a time from a QRP loan? No, you can have up to 14. So you just can only have up to one. You can only have up to 100,000. So if I have a loan out right now for 25, I could take another loan out for 75. Then we get into the E-Idls, and pretty interesting. The E-Idl is this economic injury disaster loan. And I'm just going to kind of go over who can apply and all that. I'm just going to go through that because the rules are so long. It's basically all I want you guys to look at is anybody here, unless you have over 500 employees, could probably apply. If you have over 500 employees, but you have a franchise or you have different areas, you still may be able to work. If you have over 500 employees, we would look at your code, your business code, the NAISC or whatever that's called, right over here, the size standards, and we would look, and they'll usually go off of a revenue base. So if you are under 500 employees, we don't have to think twice. And the only issue here is somebody's actually asking. You're very attuned, Jennifer. The E-Idl, Economic Injury Disaster Loans, is affiliated, which means that you take all of your businesses and you lump them together. It is one E-Idl loan for any owner who has over 20%. Now, how do I know that? Because we talked to the SBA and we said, hey, there's a lot of questions. People are saying, I'm going to do an E-Idl for each business. Can you do that? And they said, no, we're actually going to take their applications and put it aside. If you are more than a 20% owner in any business and your name shows up on more than one E-Idl application, so let's say that you applied for business one where you're a 25% owner and somebody applied for business two, both are going to get tossed according to the SBA. Somebody says, hey, I took a loan out for my QRP in 2019. Can I defer that over a year? Yes, you get a deferral automatically for a year, Karen, so you're good as gold. These two people asked that same question, so you guys are in luck. Yes, you have a deferment on your QRP loan for a year just because you're cool, because you took it out earlier, right? All right, how much can I borrow? So economic injury disaster loans, I want you guys to pretend for a second that this wasn't a pandemic where we had coronavirus everywhere that shut down the country, but that we had a really big hurricane and it hit an area of the country. That's what these economic injury disaster loans are for. They're to come into an area and say, man, these businesses got pounded. We can loan you up to a year of your operating expenses, up to $2 million bucks, and we'll make it pretty easy. Pay us back over 30 years. That's what it is. And that's what they did this. So they basically what they did is they said, hey, we're going to give you up to $2 million bucks. The small business loan is capped at 3.75 for profit businesses. For nonprofits, it's 2.75 for terms up to 30 years. And so they look at it and they say, all right, let's take a look at what kind of business you are, and we'll see what type of activity you have, how many employees you have, and all this fun stuff. And they decide how much they're going to give you. What they're going to look for, really, what they used to, it was always they just looked at your operating expenses and they said, hey, we're going to give you a loan to help you with your operating expenses for like 6 months to a year. And then you would have to use it for those costs. Like, it is a strings attached. And you said, I talked to the SBA Developmental Center yesterday. They said to apply for a PPP and E-Idl for each of my 4 LLCs. They are hiring lots and lots of people who are brand spanking new. So the rule is the PPP does not have the affiliation rule and the E-Idls does. So do not apply for the E-Idls for each of yours. And I've confirmed that multiple times because I've had more than one person say that's the advice they're getting. I can just tell you it's going to end up badly because the affiliation rules apply to the E-Idls, not to the PPP. It specifically said that the PPPs are not subject to the affiliation rules except for the nonprofits, affiliated businesses inside a nonprofit, but that's it. So anyway, going back to the E-Idls, and excuse me if I talk fast, the E-Idl is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The 3P is the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm just going to, I talk about this stuff all day, so I tend to rattle it off, but I'll try to be very direct. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, they are used for fixed debts like your rent that existed before February 15th, 2020. So they don't want you to go get a bunch of new debt and start paying for it. They want to see what you got. You can use it for payroll, accounts payables, and bills that cannot be paid because of the disaster, including things like, hey, I can't get my materials. They're much more expensive and things like that. Now here's the rub. If you use it for payroll, for example, you can't have a PPP loan doing the exact same thing. So you have to make sure that if you have an E-Idl and a PPP, and you can, that you're using the monies for different things. If you had applied for and received an economic injury disaster loan between June 30th and April 3rd, then they're just going to roll it into your PPP loan anyway. So it's kind of this weird. Somebody asked, what does affiliation mean? It means common ownership, so or control. So let's say that I'm a partner in Anderson, and I'm also a partner with Clint. We own about 150 properties all over the country, from commercial to warehouse to single families to apartments, all sorts of fun stuff. I'm affiliated with both of those companies. So I would not do an E-Idl for Anderson and do an E-Idl for our partnership or real estate. I would do one loan and I would lump them together. Now, you don't even have to be an owner to be affiliated. If you control the board, if you have the ability to veto, they've applied these things to them too. And somebody says, how burdensome is it to prove how you've used the funds? You certify it, Jeff, under penalty of perjury. That's what it is. And basically, we know there's going to be a ton of fraud going on with these programs. We know people are going to try to get the money, and I think that's why it's been such a slow walk to get it out. This thing was passed 2 weeks ago, and people are just starting to get money now. Somebody says, what if wife owns one and I own another? Technically, I don't think that there's the complete affiliation, but I would probably just do one. You're not going to hurt yourself. The only way you're going to hurt yourself is if you do two. And remember, it's just a loan. It's just a loan. So if I lump them together, so what? If I get the advance for my number of employees, that comes off the top of my PPP loan forgiveness. So a lot of folks are thinking that they're getting free money under the economic injury disaster loan, when in all reality, they're just getting a little bit of a prepayment under the PPP. All right, what can't I use the money for? And look at this list, guys. Dividends and bonuses, disbursements to owners, unless you're paying the owner for actually doing something, repayments of stockholder, expansion of facilities. So if you guys think I'm going to go buy a bunch of real estate with this, you're not. Repair, replacement of physical damages, that's what insurance is for. They're not going to let you double dip. Refinancing long-term debt, nope. You're not paying stuff off. Paying down or paying off loans provided by another federal agency, including the SBA. Repayment of anything, like basically, you're going to use it because you've been hurt, and you're going to use it for the things that hurt you. But now you're going to free up other money to do those other things. So, so that's the thing. All right. So the emergency grant advances up to $10,000 from the government to you. So it's an emergency cash grant. It's never payable back. And by the way, on all of these, I'm going to make a quick note on this little side here. And I'm going to draw it, so you guys are going to have to deal with my horrific handwriting, because I draw on a screen that is actually facing me. There is no personal guarantee, no collateral on these ones up to 200,000. You go above that, and they have the right to add more collateral. So kind of nice. That's a big one. And now, that's why they're a little bit cagey. Once they give the money, you're good. Somebody says, when you say you can't disperse to owners, do you mean it won't be forgivable, or are you no, there's no forgiveness in this one. There's the economic injury disaster loan, there's no forgiveness. They give you a grant for the first 10,000, but everything else is paid back. And if you're doing a disbursement, then you're looking at this unless for performance of services. So the owner has to do something. All right, just because this is so much fun, let's keep going on. All right, the advance, this is the cool one. That little 10,000 does not have to be repaid. If they give you money, you don't have to repay it. Now the problem is they underfunded this thing. I think they gave it like $10 billion, and there's been 3 million applications already in. So they're trying to figure out how to make this thing work. The other part is that PPP loan forgiveness is reduced by the amount of the advance. And what we're seeing is, I say major delays because very few people have gotten the money. If they started today, in fact, I forget who it was that answered that they got it. I'm going to look and see if I can't find them. Then I might just whoever got the E-Idl, and I forget your name. I apologize. I think it was Jason.
Jason.
Jason, yeah. Jason, when did you apply for that? If you're still on, if you remember when you actually applied for E-Idl, I'm kind of curious. This is real-time fact generation. He's probably March 30th, 3 days after. So Jason, you are a rock star, because that's actually really cool. So this website was fixed the day you applied, wasn't it? So the 27th must have been Friday, 28th, 29th, 30th. It was Monday, because it kept crashing all weekend, and they brought in Amazon to try to fix it. The only reason I know is because they changed the dang application 3 times over that weekend, and it kept crashing. So so you get a star. I'm gonna go to you for my lottery numbers if I actually gambled. All right, let's keep going on. This is the one you guys want to know about probably, is the Paycheck Protection Program. So here's what our ABA, our banking journal, the American Bankers Association, said today. Hey, that they have issued out, and this is the deal. Nobody's received 248 billion. It's just they've been allocated. So words matter, and so let's be real direct. When a lender goes in and plugs in one of these loans, they put it in something called E-Tran, which is linked to the SBA, and the SBA approves it. Then the lender comes to you and says, give me every document under the sun, and here's a note that you can sign. And they'll usually use the SBA's version of the note, but they don't have to. They can use their own. What that means is that in 1 million loans, 1.04, think about this for a second. According to the US Census, you know how many small businesses there are out there? You guys want to guess? This will be fun. Guess how many small businesses are in the US? And just type it in the question and answer, just for fun. I don't know if they can 30 million, 10 billion, 10 billion. Oh my God. Millions, 45 million, 20 million. I applied for got 0. That's not a number. 20 million. All right. According to the US Census, you guys are good, but you're going, it's 32 million. So that means 1 million of the 32 million got almost all the money. So no, there's still some money left. There's over, what is that? There's 349 billion. That was, so there's another 100 billion. You know, what's 100 billion between friends? But here we go. There's that 239 number. When I did the math on yesterday, and some of you guys are saying I got 0. They got the money today under the E-Idl, which means you might get something tomorrow. So maybe if you do something good, like I'd say go walk an old lady across the street, but they're not, like nobody's allowed out, right? So they'd probably arrest you for that. So maybe send a pizza to somebody, or call somebody that you've been not wanting to call, and force yourself to do it. So if you have that relative that you want to check in, maybe you'll get some luck out of that, right? But the average loan size, pretty sizable. The reason I say that is because most of the small companies, yeah, you can Zoom call your residential assisted living residents. They're still trying to. My mom used Zoom, And she said it was great, except I couldn't hear anything. And I was like, did you turn on the volume? And she goes, I think it was up. So she watched church, which, yeah, maybe that's just as good as being there. I don't know how many of you guys have parents that do that stuff. What is the website to apply for the 10K grant? Well, it's not you're applying for a 10K grant. You're actually applying for a disaster loan, and it's the Small Business Administration. So just make sure that you know how to do it, because otherwise you'll lose your 10,000. You actually have to do something to get it. That way we can have mass together. That's right. Did you guys see the one where Jesus is sitting at the table and all the I won't get it. I'll have to find that picture if I get a chance. But he's like, Judas, are you there? Hey, Judas, are you there? They're all in the little Zoom boxes. All the disciples are there, and they're like, anyway. All right, Paycheck Protection Program. Who can apply? Any business. And this is actually pretty big. And I'll just kind of go over to this sheet again so you guys can kind of follow along. All businesses if you're under 500. Now here's the deal. The affiliation rules apply. I mean, do not apply to this one. It is specifically excluded. So if you have 3 businesses with employees, you can do 3 PPP loans. You have to apply by June 30th or when the money runs out. Now, Congress has said they want to put another $250 billion. They tried to vote that in last Friday, and it got blocked because they want more money for hospitals and some other things. So there's some politics going on. All of these loans are distributed through SBA lenders. The reason I bring up the politics is that I think that more money is going to come in there, especially when the money runs out and they realize that they have, quite literally, they'll have 10 million applications. I think there's over 3 million right now, which means they have barely scratched the surface. They're going to need a lot more than 250 million. And it doesn't seem to me to be fair when I did the numbers. Less than 5% of the businesses will actually have received money under this program if they don't refund it. So that seems kind of silly. The amount is up to $10 million or 2.5 your average monthly payroll cost. And that average monthly payroll cost is your payroll up to somebody's pay up to 100,000 plus any of their health insurance, group health, plus any retirement contributions that the employer makes on their behalf. You add all that fun stuff up and you average it out. So the question that you're going to be asking of whoever's doing your payroll is, you say, how many employees did I average through 2019? And what was my average monthly amount of payroll, adding up those items? And I believe that you're subtracting out, I think it was the federal employment costs. Your income tax you don't remove, but there are some things that you do. And that's because I'm trying to think of the state will get added into that as well. Your state pieces. I'm not looking at the exhausted list, but it's a calculation that you run. If you have your payroll records, so your W-3, your 941, you're able to pull those numbers out. And what you have to do is say, if somebody received over 100,000, you don't remove them. You just remove any compensation over 100,000 for the year. So it ends up being like $8,333. So the maximum amount, if you're doing the math, it means that, hey, I could probably get about somewhere in the $20,000 range per employee, somewhere around right around that range, maybe 21,000. And that's the amount of the loan you're going to get. And the term, they said up to 10 years. They made that into 2 years. You get a deferment of 6 months, and the interest rate is 1% for 2 years. So it's kind of interesting. Now, to be forgivable, the loan has to be used for the payroll costs, the mortgage, any mortgage, interest, rents, or utilities. 75% has to be used on payroll right now. They gave us guidance saying 75% forgivable, and it's over the 8 weeks following the close. So what you have to do is this weird thing, and let me see if I could actually kind of write it up. What you're doing, and I'm going to get a pen that you guys will be able to see. So I did make the screen black. Is you have to do 2 things. You look over an 8-week period, and you add up your payroll costs. You also need your average number of employees over that 8 weeks. And the reason this is important, and I'm going to say employees, full-time, is because they're going to take your average, and I'm just going to say 2019. If you didn't have 2019 payroll, they're going to look at your first couple months of 2020. They're going to divide that up and figure out what portion. So if your payroll, and then you have it has to equal 75% of the total amount. Let's say that they gave you a loan. I'll just use the examples. If they gave you 30,000 and you use 20 of it on payroll, and you use 10,000 on other expenses that would otherwise qualify, they're going to say, hey, you have to use 75% on payroll. So they're going to immediately do a reduction. So they're going to say you're out of whack here. So they're going to reduce this number down so that this equals the 25%. So they're going to, what will that end up being? That'll be $7,500, I believe, is what you'll be allowed. And then what they do is they say, let's say that you had, I'm trying to make these numbers work. Let's say that you had, I shouldn't use a 10 there. Let's say that you have current employees. Yeah, let's say 10, and before I had 30. Then they're going to say, hey, you've reduced your workforce by 66%. So they're going to multiply that 66 by that forgivable amount and reduce it by that much. So you're only going to get a third of this. So you're going to end up getting forgiveness of somewhere in the neighborhood, let's just say of $14,000 to $15,000. The problem is that a lot of companies, if they don't keep their employees, they're not going to get it waived, and they're going to end up with a 2-year loan at 1%. And we've been saying that since it came out, saying this doesn't seem to be what we intended it to be. Like, what they intended it to be was a bailout for the small business owner. But I don't know. In some cases, maybe not. Now, if you're small and you just have yourself, like let's say you're a sole proprietor, they just came out with guidance today, and they said, hey, use your 1099. If you're a partnership and you materially participate and you're taking that money, that's more than likely going on your Schedule E page. I would say probably page 2 is you guys get to take that money, and they're going to verify that. They could take a P&L. They're going to verify that, and that's your payroll cost, whatever you were living off of, the net amount. They're going to calculate that, multiply it by 2.5, and that's the amount that you're going to get. And then you get to use 8 weeks. You're going to pay for those things. You can't jack it up, but it's going to be, you can pay for those things, whatever the average amount was, and you can pay your interest, you can pay your rent, you can pay your utilities out of it. And then if that's what you use it for, so let's say that they give you $25,000 or something along those lines, and you spend all 25, you don't have to pay any of it back. That's not too bad. Can the PPP be used for part-time employees or only full-time employees? I believe that the ratio is the full-time, but it's anything on payroll. So the PPP is a terrible option if we don't retain our employees. Jeff, that's exactly right. In fact, there was a few articles written out about it where people realized, hey, it's cash, I get it, but I'm not going to get much of it forgiven. I'm just going to have to pay it back anyway. And so if they bring their employees back, to me, what didn't make a lot of sense is that sounds like unemployment. So I looked at it saying, hey, if you're just paying the employer to bring their employees back, which is really what they were doing, is they were basically saying, hey, we're going to pay you to keep your staff. But they didn't get it out fast enough, and people were laying off their staff left and right, which is why we had these huge unemployment numbers. And most of the state unemployment offices broke. Here in my state, you couldn't get in. The people that were looking for unemployment, they would call for days. There was people that would sit there on hold for 5 hours a day trying to file. The website was broken. They finally took it down for a day and fixed it this weekend, but most people weren't able to make their claims. They are going retroactive, so the federal amount, that extra $600 is retroactive, so that's not going to be as the back. It is the full-time employee totals. It's the average amount, yeah, per month. So it's your total average amount per month. So if you have months where you have full-time employees and you know, they're just trying to get it down. So if you have 20, 22, 23, you're probably going to average right around 22, you know, or 21. Somebody says, as a sole proprietor, can I apply for PPP and unemployment? Well, yes. And if you get the PPP, then you're going to go off of unemployment. So you're just going to pay yourself. But, you know, but again, if you're working, some of these things make sense. If you're getting unemployment, then you can't be working. If you're working, then you can't get unemployment. Does that make sense? So if you get the PPP and all you do is you buy yourself a couple of months at the same amount that you were making anyway, you may be better off just staying on unemployment, since I think it's 36 weeks or something. It's a really long period of time. You may be better off just not messing around with it. All right, the employment tax credit. This is another one that gets kind of weird. Who can use it? Any employer. Is there a time limit? It's quarterly, and it's before the end of the year. And so what you're supposed to do is show that you've either been affected by the shutdown as a partial or total shutdown. Then that quarter qualifies. So we're in the second quarter. Everybody here qualifies because everything's been shut down for the most part. Like if you're a hospital, no, you wouldn't qualify, right? Or if your income was cut by more than 50%, then what they do is they say, hey, you get to write off half of the employee cost up to $10,000 with a cap of $5,000 for the year per employee. So if you have employees and you're going to add up their payroll costs, including any health benefits, retirement, things like that, and you're going to add that up for the quarter, and you're going to take half of that. So I have a cool calculator that I built to do it because I'm not smart enough to sit there and hand write it out all the time. I just plug in my numbers and it spits it out for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is easy. I can just do this. And that way I can figure it out. The conditional use is no. You can basically, when you get that credit, what you do is you offset the old age, death, and survivors portion that you would normally be paying, which is your half of the Social Security, the employer half. And then if it's more than that, you file a form, and I think it's like a 7002 or something like that. They came up with it for this. And you say, by the way, you owe me money. It's just like you overpaid your employment taxes and the IRS kicks it. And that's usually about a 3-week wait where they'll kick it. So it's not too bad. But if you do this, you cannot do the PPP. So the employment tax, here's it kind of in a nutshell. It's a credit against employment tax. And we already said that there's the suspended or the significant decline, and you cannot do the PPP forgivable loan if you do the employment tax credit. So once you apply and receive funds, so if you apply, you're okay. If you receive the funds under the PPP, this is out the door. And 9 out of 10 of you guys are gonna be better off under the PPP. I'll just be straight with you. But there are the ones where it's significantly better for them just to take the credits because they are shut down. Like for a restaurant, for example, it's going to take a lot longer than 8 weeks for them to recover. So they're better off letting their people stay on unemployment, because when we are out of the quarantine and people are able to go out to restaurants again, I think it's going to be a slow go. So they're not going to be full staffed on day one. They're going to have to build up. So I hope that makes sense. And then we go back to this. So the way that I look at this is I start on the left-hand side and I work my way over. Then last you get to this Sba Express. And I'm just going to tell you guys, my experience right now, the Sba Express, they did nothing cool. What they did is the Sba Express, the only thing cool, like if you could even say it, here, to make something where you can actually read my writing, was they made it $1 million up from 350, but it is a loan that you have to go through like a traditional loan with collateral and everything else. So you're going to need the collateral. Yes, you have a lender, that's your bank. Affiliation rules apply, yes, and you can do that. But I would say that's my last resort. I am more than likely going to be doing something in the alternative market rather than that. Like if I'm not getting money elsewhere on any of these other things, I'm probably going to get money going through some of these fintech companies, making some new products. There's enough out there. And so before I do some Q&A, I'm just going to tell you guys that this is something we do at our firm. If you want to have us walk you through this process and help get you money, we can. We have relationships with preferred lenders, meaning that we have a relationship with somebody who does the PPP loans. That's national. I'm still going to say you're better off going to your small local bank, but we will assist in the preparation of the PPP loan. For example, the one that I did yesterday, I just did all the documents to back up the loan. They went and found their local bank and said, hey, I have some deposits with you. And I just corresponded directly with the banker, gave them everything they needed with a little bow on top, and boom, they were able to get approved right away. That's what we want. So that's what we're able to do. And I will tell you this, under the PPP, there are no success fees. People aren't supposed to be charging. So we are not charging for the PPP. What we charge for is looking at your entire scenario and looking for viable options to obtain funds, preparing all the applications and assembling the documents, reviewing financial statements, pointing you in the right direction, doing the calculations and corresponding with the lenders. If we do that, it's $2,500. And I know somebody that says Wells Fargo is not issuing. They had a problem because they got in trouble and they had a $10 billion limit on the total amount of SBA loans they could have nationwide. So they already had most of that taken up, so they couldn't even do them. They got that removed, but most big banks, just think about this. Would you want to give somebody you've never met before a loan at 1% with no collateral and no guarantee? Because if I'm a bank, I don't want to do that. I'm looking at that going, that's not too smart. So here's a link if you want to go. I can share that out, or you guys can just type that in however you want. But you can go there, and if you wanted us to do it for you, we're certainly happy to do it. We walk it through a process, and that process is right in line with what I was showing you, where we go left to right. I'm going to start, and I'll just give you guys an explanation of how this works. Let's say somebody comes in, and they say, Toby, how can you help me? Like, I could go apply for loans. And I say, that's fantastic. You know, let's see whether it makes sense for you to go after certain types of loans, but let's see what's right underneath your nose. And we look at it and we realize that in 2019, they made $200,000. And I look and I say, hey, you know, there's a small business over here. You have your 401k that you put some money into, but you took, you know, let's just say it's $50,000 of salary. Why don't we go ahead and make a contribution to that 401k for 2019 and unlock some of that money? And they look at me and they say, wait a second, I can only put 12,500. So why would I do that? I need that 12,500. And I say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put it in there, and then we're going to take it right back out. And you're not going to have to pay it back for 3 years. And we're going to create some tax deductions. And while we're at it, we're going to look at other options that we might have. You know, we're going to look at the IRAs. When we have somebody come in who's the sole proprietor, for example, they may not even realize that they could still do a SEP that will do a contribution on, take the money right back out, but get them some tax money back that they'd be paying in 2019. They may have already paid it. And we're going to try to get some of that money back. And we're going to say, here's the available funds to you. Because we did that, we just bought ourselves a little bit of time. We're still going to file for the E-Idl. We're still going to file for the PPP. We're just going to make sure that we're doing it in your best interest. We're going to do the calculations to make sure that you're not losing anything. You're still getting your tax credit. We're going to look at alternative lenders. We're going to take you to and see what other programs are available. And believe it or not, there's going to be other programs. The banks have been literally shut down dealing with all the PPP loans. And so there are going to be other opportunities where they come out with others. There's also, it seems inevitable that Congress is going to have to allocate more money for that PPP. And so we want to make sure that you're in line. Time is of the essence on that. So we want to make sure it's done, that you know exactly what they want to see. And it's not as easy as trying to fill out an application, guys. It's how you present the information as to whether you're going to have success or not. E-Idls, aren't horribly difficult, except when you're calculating cost of goods sold. If you're in real estate, you're flipping houses, or you're doing something along those lines, it could be brutal trying to figure out how to fill that out because you don't understand how cost of goods sold is actually calculated. A lot of accountants don't understand that payroll can be part of cost of goods sold in a service industry. And so they're always thinking of kind of this inventory, the cost of bringing in their inventory, and that's going to be their cost of goods sold. That is not how it's done. And so I'll just kind of show you how this works and what else you get. Let me just switch over a screen. Let me quit out of this. And hold on. There we go. I want to show you guys actually a different monitor. There we go. So I'm just switching you around. And this is what it would look like. So if you click through and you did the ABA.link Don cares, I love that. I told Don that I was gonna put your name into it.
Thanks, Toby.
Absolutely. Then this is what it looks like. And so we're actually there's one, the only time that there's any additional funds is if we get you over $200,000 and it's not a PPP loan. We never charge you anything on a PP loan, never. But anything else, if we get you over 200,000 to $1 million, we're going to charge you $1,500. If we get you over like let's say we get you 2 million, we're going to charge you 2,500. You'd pay us a total of 5,000 to go get that money, and it's going to be through our lender. So we're going to go out there and find it. If you go do stuff on your own, we don't get paid for that. But what we're looking at is we're looking at all the different available monies underneath this program. There's a few other goodies in there, and we're just going to look for anything that's not nailed down, and we're going to run the numbers. And that's what our job is. And then we're going to make sure that you're assembled right and presented right. If we do that, you win, we win, everybody wins. And that's kind of the big deal right now, is making sure that you actually get through it.
Toby, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Absolutely.
What I've learned over the last hour is that this is so much more complicated than the news media makes it out to be. In fact, I applied for a loan for my wife's little business, and we thought, okay, free money. Well, you would fill out the 4-page application, great, and then, but I can see as you've gone through this, oh, I screwed up this, and they never replied. They never gave a reject. They just, I guess, they just tossed it. But
that's essentially what they're doing.
Yeah. Wow, this is like, but the other thought that occurred to me is that this is like playing football but they didn't give you a rule book, and the rules keep changing, and they keep redefining the rules as you keep playing the game. How do you win at this game without a professional helping you do this? I don't know, Toby. This is
a lot of it is a
I'm
moving
really
target. A lot of it's a moving target, Don. And that's the fact of the matter, is that they come out with guidance. They came out with more guidance today. They keep doing these, like for the, just so you guys know, you couldn't even get a PPP loan on a sole proprietor or an independent contractor until the 10th. It's 4 days old. And they never gave us any rules for how to calculate or anything else. So they came out today and gave us some rules. Today, not yesterday, literally today, they came out this afternoon and said, oh yeah, here's how I want you to calculate it. So anybody who had already done a loan, guess what they're doing? They're redoing it. We had to redo one loan package 3 times based off of the changed rules in the first week. So, and we have a full staff that's just doing this stuff. I have 30 people dedicated to this. And that's all they do all day. And we're having to go back and redo stuff because they change it midstream. So I can't imagine what everybody else is going through. And then I'm on a banker's call every day with about 4,000 lenders, and I listen to them go through it. Yeah, bureaucrats. What they did is they gave a governmental program to a bunch of for-profit banks, thinking that it was a good idea because the SBA was ill-equipped to handle it. And the SBA can't handle the E-Idls. They handle 60,000 loans a year. 60,000. So we just dump 10 million on them and expect them to be able to go and do it. It's crazy. Oh, did I lose you? Uh-oh.
You're good. You're still here.
Oh, somebody said no sound. Sorry.
You're good.
Oh, I thought that was for me. I thought that was you saying try calling in with your phone.
No, you're
Uh,
good.
all right. So what I want to do is you guys have have a lot of questions. I've already seen a bunch of them, and I'm happy to go through them and answer all of your questions. And somebody says, is it possible to go into consultation? Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Why don't you can go ahead. I just tell you that we're busy, but I'm not going to say that we can't do it. So easiest way is to call into the office, or if you have, you could have Dawn, might be the best way to do it, and say, just, hey, Dawn, do the golden handshake, because we want to make sure that we get you taken care of. Oh, there's Nick. Hey, Nick. Nick, did you mess up the affiliation rule on the E-Idl? And we'll see if he responds. Yeah. I wouldn't apply again. What I would do is did you apply to multiple? Did you apply for multiple companies, or did you just do the one? Yeah. You're going to get Nick. It's bad. What they told us, and it may be different, but they told us that they just pull any applications that are duplicate, where they have the same owner listed twice, as they take it away. But it all is not lost. You never know. It just means that it's being delayed for the time being. And that's what they're doing with the big rush, is they're saying problem, looks good, handling the looks good.
And did they let you know that why it's rejected, or they simply
Nope.
throw it out?
They just throw it out, is what they're telling us, that they don't have the time.
Cool.
Isn't that wild? Yeah. Now, I'll use like somebody's chatting in with Nick, but Nick, you're the type of situation where you've, obviously, I believe you're in this is probably for assisted living and things like that. Is you'd be looking at the PPP, and you'd also, the E-Idl would actually be in your alley, so it may be worth reaching out to the SBA if you have the numbers on those applications, and seeing if you can't remove one. Maybe it's not too late, and have one go through, and then adjust your numbers when you're actually doing when they're verifying the amount. Say, oops, I forgot this company. See if you can't go pull one. But the other thing is, there's a lot of alternative lending out there, and it's going to get bigger because there's so much money. Like, again, I don't think people realize $600 billion is a lot. That is a ton of cash, and the Fed is buying that directly from the small business lenders. So you're going to be looking at it. Somebody says, how do you calculate the PPP is based on 8 weeks? How about the E-Idl? So the E-Idl is not forgiven. The E-Idl you pay back over 30 years. So whatever loan amount they give you is just that. It's a loan, and it's at 3.75%. So when we look around for money, that's our base point. Like, if you have the SBA says, hey, we gave you $1,000 that you don't have to pay back, and we have another 100,000 that we're willing to give you, 30-year 3.75, and then you go to lender number 2 and they say, hey, how about I give you a line of credit for 3.5? You might be better off going with the line of credit. It's not, again, it's something where you should be walking in looking at all of your available options. And we have a few aggregators that we work with, where what you'll do is you go to like MyFICO, grab your credit score, and that way we don't have anybody pulling credit. And we just say, what are the available programs? And we have a few that are actually pretty good, and they're saying, here's what it would cost. Somebody says, what's the rate of a QRP loan? It's federal AFR rates, which right now are hovering right around 1%. So usually they try to make them a little market value. So if it's through your employer, it might be slightly higher, but if it's you're just going to say whatever's the least amount, because you're paying yourself, so you don't really care. Donnie, are you okay with me just kind of going through some of these questions, or do you have any that you
Well,
had?
let me ask you just a couple things before we, because we're scheduled to end in about 9 minutes. If somebody wanted to take advantage of it, is there a timeline for this offer, this $2,500, and you'll walk them through and do the applications and fill out the paperwork for them? Is there a timeline for this? Is it good for, today only, or what are we looking at?
The 2,500 is, I would say, till the end of the week, and then it's probably gonna, like, there's only so much that we can do, and I'm just trying to be straight with y'all. We almost turned it off when we started to see how long it would take to go through things. So we were thinking the application process, we didn't know how bad it was going to be. So we actually started to turn it off. And then the application process was more stuff that was right in our line. It wasn't the amount of the application paperwork isn't extreme. It's the supporting documents that's extreme. So we didn't know until we did.
So this isn't a silly little sales game. This is just logistics. Your people can handle only so many loans, and then you have to
It would
set
be
up
for anybody. So it's not any particular group would do it. If we hit our capacity, which we are very careful, we have 30 people dedicated to this right now, but we yank them from other places. This did not exist 3 weeks ago. We did business loans. We worked with the SBA, but the CARES Act was passed on the 27th, and everybody's trying to walk through the same door. So this is almost like tax. This is like a tax deadline. This is when everybody's super busy, and it's like anything else. During tax time, there's only so many hours in a day that an accountant can do stuff. There's only so many hours in a day that I can get my guys to do this, and we're meeting every single day. They all worked on Easter even. So it's like they're volunteering and they're willing to do it, but I'm not going to destroy them. We'll see if there's anybody else out there that can assist. But again, this is something that's going to be a short term. Get the benefit under here. Make sure that in the next 30-90 days is the critical time for businesses. According to a poll, about 50% of businesses will not survive beyond an additional 30 days without capital. They need capital infusion. So we're just focusing on making sure that the businesses that we work with get their capital.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me answer some of these questions if it's okay.
Yes.
Somebody says, I know that, go ahead.
Just so you know, Toby, I did in the chat screen, I did take that link and make it clickable in the chat screen. So if you have a hard time typing that in, it's clickable in the chat screen.
Good. So I don't ever have to do it again. You could send it out to them. It's not a big deal. And I can always go through you guys. If you guys don't know, I do a little thing called Tax Tuesday, and I'm used to answering questions on the fly. So I actually enjoy when people are chatting it up. So sometimes I answer them as I go. You're probably looking at me like, where is he pulling that stuff out of? I'm reading your stuff as I'm talking to you guys. It's kind of fun. Anyway, so there's a bunch of stuff in here. One is, I know that the 501c3 is not owned by me, and it's considered common ownership with other LLCs just because of common control. So for the E-Idl, it could be, but not for the PPP. So your 501c3 can apply for a PPP. Your LLC, if it has its own payroll, can apply for a PPP. Your corporation, if you have another business, can apply for a PPP. That's not an issue. The only time you have an issue is when you have control and it's all the entities for an E-Idl. Somebody says, what's the penalty like for the 401k individual who does not pay it back in 3 years? So if you do not pay, and I'm going to assume you're talking about the early withdrawal, not the loan, because the loan you actually have 6 years to pay back. And any portions that you don't pay back are treated as a distribution in the year that happens, and you're just going to have an early distribution. So you'd have, what would that be? If you're under 59.5, that would be a 10% penalty plus ordinary tax. If it's the other, you're looking at, so if you're just doing an early withdrawal out of a IRA, you're looking at the 10% plus the tax. So get it in there, get it back. You have 3 years to do it. So just really focus in on making sure that's paid back. Even if you have to borrow money from your 401k to pay back the IRA, you know, do it. It's better. Somebody says, I had my first meeting, second scheduled, would be PP. Should I be worried about the timing of the meeting on the PP? No, I think they're going to give more money. They have 250 billion that they're already talking. They're just doing their political thing. So I think they're just going to give us all squeamish, but I would want that PPP in. So if you're talking to somebody, Kendall, I would actually email them and say, can I get my PPP in now? Because what it matters is what the bank does. And so this is exactly what the banks are doing. If they have if they have 100 applications, this is what I've had multiple bankers tell me. They have to choose which ones they're putting through E-Tran. And they have to know that person. And whoever has the best docs going in, whoever is ready to go, they're not going to stay in that pile. And again, I could just use yesterday as an example. As soon as it was ready, they were like, good, this one's done. My job's easy. And the bank, by the way, gets 5% from the SBA up to 350,000. So if it goes over 350 to 2 million, I think it's, God, I want to say it's like 2%. Somebody says, I got turned down for a PPP. What should I do now? Reapply with somebody else that's a preferred banker. So I would talk to us and get us to go through somebody. We're a preferred organization with Live Oak. If you've ever heard of Live Oak, they were the first ones that got money for people. So there's very few groups that they work with, and we get preferential treatment because we've had a relationship with them for years. Somebody says the thrift savings, you're going to have to talk to your administrator. So that's a government plan. And you're going to say, hey, I need early withdrawal, which you'll be able to do up to 100,000. And I have a little letter that I use that we make available to the folks that are in our CARES Act program. But I could always, if you email Don or something, I can give them what I've been sending out. And all you're doing is putting your information on it, letting them know why they're doing it. So Don, they all have your email and stuff, right? And I could always, or Kendall, I could always put mine up, but I want to make sure that I'm,
sure.
it's your folks. So
Don@wealth.com.
Yeah. So what I'll do is, Don, if they reach out to you, I'll give them anything that they need. If they need slides or if they need any of this information, I'm more than happy to share it.
Sure.
But there's actually a way to go about it, and they have the magic language out of the CARES Act, which there's a 3-pronger, and all we do is use the 3-pronger and just basically put in the data, say why we want it. Can you borrow from a Roth or can you borrow from an inherited IRA? So Mark, the answer is a Roth you don't have to borrow from, you just take the money out. It's not taxable. So if I put money in a Roth, I can take it out the next day. It makes a great savings account for young people. If it grows, then I have to be aware of it, leaving it in there for 5 days. The borrow from an inherited IRA, if it was from a spouse, and then you can roll it into your own. If it's from anybody but your spouse, then you cannot. Then it's going to have to be the I forget what they call that, the inherited IRA. It's the decedent. It's still their IRA, and you're just a beneficiary of it. And then you wouldn't be able to because it's still an IRA. 401k loan that depends on a specific company. So it depends on your company documents. 401ks you're allowed to borrow from, and it just depends on whether your employer allows what's any restrictions they put on it. The withdrawal they shouldn't have any control over. Somebody says, could I have a property management company manage my own properties? Could I apply for unemployment in PA since I got turned down for PPP? You got turned down for PPP, you must not have been paying yourself a salary or something out of the company. I'd have to know what type of company, but yes, if I actually ran into this in California with a client. They are an event photographer, so they got completely hammered, and the best route for them to get 100% of their money was to lay themselves off from their S corp because they were paying state unemployment and federal FUTA and SUTA, And so they were able to get 100% of their stuff as unemployment. And we took them that route pretty quickly because, again, they were looking at this going, hey, what about this? I'm like, hey, there's going to come a time for it, but make sure you're back open. If there's nobody doing any events, then why get a PPP loan? Like, doesn't make a lot of sense. You'd be better off getting 36 months of this stuff until you're able to go back to work. Question, as a real estate investor, can I use E-Idl funds to pay mortgage, tax, insurance, properties, lease? That rent is either not coming in? Yes, Brent, you're able to use it to pay for all that. Absolutely. The E-Idl is the appropriate relief for a real estate investor. You want to make sure that you're doing that. Somebody says past my bedtime. What else did they did? There's a few other. Oh, let me see. Some people say the PPP is the best option. Where do you apply for the E-Idl? Again, that's the SBA. Oh, here's a bunch. For the IRA loan, are the rules different for someone at the age of minimum required distributions? First off, know that, oh, you already said it. There's no required minimum distribution for 2020. They waived that. And if you're not taking it, can you borrow it and pay it back? Well, you're not borrowing it from the IRA. You're doing an early withdrawal. You would not have the 10% regardless, but you do the early withdrawal so you don't pay any tax on it. You pay it back before the end of the 3 years. So before December 31st, because the way they describe it is tax years. They didn't say 3 years from the date. It's you would just have to make that payment back. And if you did pay it back, you could pay it back and then take it back out in the form of a required minimum distribution. So an RMD is technically what it is. So yes, you still could do it. What is self-employed but functioning at a loss to input for the PPP? They're going to look at how much draw you're taking out. So if you're losing money, that sucks. Like I don't know a way to get you under the PPP. What I would do is be looking at the E-Idl. If you have one job and the other job is not providing income, can you still apply for unemployment? It's a good question. I think that if you have a job, that that's going to not allow you to get unemployment. Though there might be a thing, I know that there's a way to apply in some states if your hours got hacked back. So if you lost one job and still have the other, but your hours were reduced significantly, then yes, you would be eligible for it. But it's going to depend on your state, and the feds are going through the states for that distribution. So it matters what your state law is. As a sole proprietor, can I apply for PPP and unemployment? I think we already talked about that. The answer is you can't be receiving PPP and also getting unemployment. Let's see. We just got approved for our loan for construction, and I'm not sure if the CARE Act applies to us during the construction phase. It could. So Michelle, it looks like she may have already left. Yeah, so if you're doing construction, then that would be the E-Idl, where materials are more expensive or you're in a delay. In which case you're gonna, as long as you were already in business by February 15th, you're okay. When I did the E-Idl, app did not ask what amount we wanted. They're determining it off of the cost of goods sold. So what they're going to do is figure out what your actual cost of your service or your product is. And so a lot of people did that incorrectly. They did their COGS incorrectly. So you're going to, like, when they come back at you, you're going to want to fix that and make sure. So most of my tenants are not paying rent. I have mortgages and private contractor to pay. I got turned down with PPP. So we're seeing this popping up now a few times, right? Get somebody to help you with this stuff, right? There's a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong. And how would you know if an E-Idl is rejected? So an economic damages loan, they're supposed to tell you, and you can check on it once it gets applied for. So you'd use your number, and you should be able to go there and see status. Although my understanding is that they're putting them aside, and not telling anybody. I've not seen anybody where it said rejected. They just let you sit in perpetual hold. When we do them under a written, you'll usually have communication back right away. But this is not normal times. Normal times, they're doing thousands per year. Now they're doing millions in a month. So they're just not, they're going to have to outsource this, guys. I just have a feeling that it's going to end up being a big, like an Intuit or somebody who's going to have to help them, or maybe a fintech company that's going to help them collect all their stuff. Can I take from my Roth and pay it back in 3 years? I believe you can, but I'm not 100% sure, Gregory. I'd have to look at that. But that would make sense that it's an early distribution. And then somebody else says, where do I apply for the $10,000 grant? It is an up to $10,000 emergency grant based on the number of employees you have, and it's with the SBA. So you would go to the SBA.gov, or you'd have us do it for you if you wanted us to do it. That's part of that service. If, again, it's up to you as to how you guys go about this. What I'm just going to say is there's other things out there that we're looking for money under rocks. We're looking for other services. I think this is the opening salvo. I think that there's nobody that could have really anticipated, at least nobody was really looking at the numbers, that the amount of response. And I think we're looking at 30% unemployment coming up with some pretty serious ramifications for the next 90 days. And so the way I look at it is, in 6 months, we'll be back to normal. But in the meantime, batten down the hashes and getting ready for some rough weather. And you can't control, what do they say? It's an old biblical phrase, but if you can't calm the storm, be calm in the storm. So.
Nice thought, Toby. Hey, will you put that screen up one more time? If somebody wants to take advantage of your offer.
Yeah. Are you talking about this screen here, that one? I'm just teasing.
Definitely,
well,
Come on, there's good art. Come on.
Oh, there we go. But there's a delay there. I didn't see the. Okay. And let's take. We're a little over time, so let's take about 3 or 4 more questions, and the rest of it. You know what? You can send me an email tomorrow, or you listen to the replay again, because a lot of the questions that Toby's getting, he's already answered 2 or 3 times. And so I encourage you to listen to that again. The recording will be available usually after 24 hours. Anybody who's registered for this webinar, you'll get it, and you can listen to it as many times as you want to. So Toby, I appreciate your time so much, but let's take just a few more questions, and then let's cut it off in about 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Come on, guys. Who is hurting that needs some money? Because we could just we could walk through this a little bit. Hey, some people won't ask questions. Period, Don. It's like raising your hand at an event.
I get it. Yeah. Go to KWC.
Oh, here we go.
All of his rentals are owned by IRAs and Roth accounts. Can he get help for unpaid rents?
That's pretty interesting. So whether a qualified account would be able to, I don't believe so. It has to be an active business concern. So I don't think you're going to get it through the CARES Act. I think we're going to have to look at some different funding. And if you know IRAs, you have unrelated debt financed income that you have to be aware of. You have to use it through a qualified retirement plan. So like if we're going to use debt in a qualified plan, we're going to make sure that it's in something where it doesn't cause a taxable event. So IRAs,
you get the payment tax coming back at you.
You got it.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. The CRT and deduct 100%. So yes, you can. Can you start a CRT? It's Charitable Remainder Trust. But here's the deal. It's going to be 100% of the amount, but they're going to adjust it because it's a remainder interest. So your CRT amount is going to end up, like, the amount of deduction is probably going to be about 10% of whatever you're putting in there. So the charitable amount is based on the future remainder interest, Walter. So I always say, like, if I put in $100,000 in a CRT, I'm probably getting a $10,000 deduction. But in this particular year, I could use that entire, if all I had was $10,000 of adjusted gross income, then it would offset it all. When does the 8-week clock start on the PPP? When your loan closes, when it funds. Applied week or two ago, got a number, but cannot go back to the site to check the app. The site took the button down. Yeah, they changed it like 3 or 4 times. If you have the number, there is still a place that you can go on the SBA to check it. They should be emailing you too, Jessica. So go look and see if you have anything from the Small Business Administration. They spell it all out when they send you stuff. And see if that's in your email and your junk mail, and you should have a link to go back and check it. How do I check SBA is not answering phones nor calling back? During the day, they have chat. So I would go and I would get somebody to do chat with you. I have several types of entities, C Corp and LLCs. For the DLA, which entity should you use since you only use one? So the economic disaster loan, you would use whichever one you want as your active business. So I'd probably pick whatever one's your management entity. Somebody says we have 5 assisted living companies and also a nonprofit. Do we apply for each LLC or only the nonprofit apply for the PPP? So Lynn, it's going to depend on how much, where your payroll is. So the PPP is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll over the last year. They're actually going back from January 30th of 2020 back. And if you don't have that, then they oftentimes just look at 2019, or they'll look at January and February of 2020. And they're just kind of looking like you have some flavors. And they're going to try to figure it out. And you're going to look at whichever ones have payroll. And if you have a management entity running them all, that's the one that you're going to do the PPP with. Sole proprietor can do E-Idl and also unemployment. You can absolutely do unemployment. And for sure, the E-Idl has to be used on operating expenses, but it is a loan. So yes, you could do unemployment for a while until you're back up and then use the E-Idl for the things you're allowed to do. So like if you have set expenses, use that in the meantime. Just don't work because you're violating your unemployment agreement, right? Because I think you have to say that I'm not working. So you know what I mean. Like, don't go out and take a bunch of jobs. But Mike, that I had a few photographers that just got shut down. I mean, just totally. They were doing weddings and they were doing live events and stuff, and they just got popped. And then when you come back, it's going to be a slow go. So I'm almost telling people, I got in a little bit of trouble even with my staff. I was like, hey, slow walk that PPP. You get that too early and we're still in the middle of a quarantine. You just wiped out most of the forgiveness. You just got them a big loan, and I could go do that afterwards. Why would I do that right now? The only reason people are doing it is because they have a fear that the money's going to run out. And so I always say, be careful what you wish for. You go out there, you run and try to get one of these loans, and it's not like that PPP. You got to make sure that you're operational first. So sometimes the best thing you could do is sit on your hands and wait. If you are operating, but you've just had your income cut, the E-Idl becomes your friend, as does those tax credits on the employees. And again, I want to take a look at both because I know for certain that in the fourth quarter, if I have employees back, that I'm getting about $5,000 per employee as a tax credit. So if I know I'm going to have 20 employees in December, in November, I may be better off grabbing those. Somebody says, so your LLCs have only been in business for 10 months. Will they take the average payroll for the PPP? Yes, Lynn, they absolutely will. And what you'd probably end up doing is taking January and February. And they're going to want your payroll numbers. What they've all been asking for is the W-3 and the 941s and the 944s. You are welcome. So let's see, is there anything else? If Donna, I don't think there's a lot else. So
you know what? They can email me in the morning. I can't answer your questions, but I can pass them. I can group them and pass them on. I don't want to take too much of Toby's time. Really, I encourage you to go back and watch this. There's so much. This is like moving into America from a foreign country and expected to do your own taxes the very first day you're here. It's like, it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It is so much more complicated than what the news media. Oh, look, $2 trillion available for small businesses,
Isn't that crazy?
and we, what a crock. If you're a small business and you're looking for money, I don't see any way to navigate this without some help. So take advantage of that. If this is going to be a benefit and a blessing to your business, please take advantage of this. Toby, I cannot thank you enough for helping us understand the complexities of this. I
My
don't know anybody else we could have turned to.
Hey, my
Thank you.
pleasure. And real quick, just because Chad said, hey, does the PPP keep you from getting the tax credit? Yes, it does, Chad. I just want to make sure that information is getting out there because nobody's talking about that. It's you do not want to cut your nose off to spite your face, just even by accident.
Yeah. So any closing comments before you wrap this up for the night, Toby?
Yeah, get somebody on your team that's going to make sure that you stay in business. And I'm not talking about us. I'm just talking about in general. Make sure that you have people on your team that are going to help you stay in business. You have detractors out there. I think everybody realizes this is a good time to clean house. If you have, there's good people looking for work. And if you have somebody who's pulling you down, and because the job market was so tight last year, that you like, this is a good time to clean house. Even if you're doing a PPP, they don't care whether you have new employees or old employees. This is a good time to go out there and find the good people that have aligned values. And so sometimes I would say there's a blessing in everything. This might be one of those blessings where we get a little time out, and yeah, it's painful, but those of us that go through it, and you've been through it, Don, shoot, 9/11,
Yep.
shut down the markets, the tech bubble, the recession, the depression, whatever you want to call it. You go through a few of these, it makes you a better business owner.
We've been through lots together, you and I, Toby. What a ride this has been for 20, 25 years. Thank you. Again, thank you. Great comments. I've got text messages. I've got emails. This is the best webinar we've ever done, and so
Those are
incredibly
from me, by
timely.
the way, Don.
Well, you could do it all. You can teach, you can answer questions, and you can text me and at the same time. Toby, again, thank
You
you
guys are awesome.
over the
Thanks for
years.
having me.
Thanks, buddy.
All
Have
right.
a great night, everyone. Thank you.